Hi there, and welcome to Cinderella's CEO on Air. It is so good to be with everyone, and especially our guest today, Dr. Faye Hall Jackson from Tuskegee University. And a lot of you may know or have heard of Faye, but I'm going to give you a little bit of her background. And on the other side, I'll tell you about what Faye and I are doing. I will call her Dr. Jackson probably throughout, but I'll probably slip and call her Faye because Faye and I have known each other for many years, and we have a great relationship and have stayed in touch over probably a 20-year period. So we were babies together. So Faye, don't get embarrassed, but I'm going to talk about you now. And
Uh-oh.
the best thing that I know that Faye is so proud of too is that she's an alma mater, or her alma mater is the University of, well, it's actually, you have three alma maters, right? So
I do.
you, you're an outreach educator at Tuskegee University, and you are a professor of sales and marketing in the Andrew Bremer College of Business and Information Science at Tuskegee. You were management department head and associate dean at the same institution, but really wanted to give your focus full time to teaching, which is fantastic. Prior to that, you were associate professor of hospitality management and director of the Hospitality Industry Diversity Institute in the Conrad Hilton College, and that is housed at the University of Houston. So, what I meant by you being an outreach educator is that you've partnered with the Tuskegee University Cooperative Extension Program, and you produce an annual economic development summit, which targets rural entrepreneurs and municipality leaders. And what's so cool, and I don't think I knew this, is that the summit honors the legacy of Booker T. Washington, who is the founder of the Negro Business League and founding principal of Tuskegee. That's fascinating. I didn't know that. You are very involved in the Tuskegee area, including with the diabetes support group. You're a lifetime member of Zeta Phi Beta sorority. You completed your MBA at Clark Atlanta University, and you earned your PhD from Auburn University. And as you may or may not know, those listening to the podcast, is Faye is also co-leader of the C2CEO Diversity and Inclusion Curriculum, which is presenting a course beginning June 10th, Diversity and Inclusion in the 2021 Workforce. Wow. With all that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Faye Hall Jackson, my friend, Faye.
Oh, thank you so much, Carrie. Gosh, for that very gracious introduction. And it is just wonderful to be here. I am so excited
Wait,
about our course and sharing it with people.
I am too, Faye, and you earned every one of those words about your career and your background because you have really done so much. And today is the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre, and it's the first day of Gay Pride Month. And I think my first question to you is, as head of D&I program, and I've been head of a D&I corporate program and consulted with different companies on their programming. And I would recognize certain diversity and inclusion milestones like Martin Luther King Day, Juneteenth, Chinese New Year. And this is outward and internal messaging that companies and organizations can send. But how
Mhm.
important is it to recognize these milestones?
Gosh, it is incredibly important. And I think the thing that I would say is that every day is important, but on this day where we truly have these milestone observances of such a tragedy
Yeah.
in the fabric of our American history, but also when we look at Gay Pride Month, a wonderful way to celebrate and acknowledge individuals that exist among us. We also have to understand that in our workplace, there are individuals that resonate with both of these occurrences.
Yes.
And because there are individuals that resonate with both of these, as keepers of the industry, as supporters of our workforce, the best thing that we can do is avail ourselves to listening to them and
Ex-
providing a safe space for our employees to be heard.
I love that.
Yeah.
And just one of the things that we are hearing, and a question we received, is what should self-care look like for a diversity and inclusion professional? So somebody handling these issues today,
Mhm.
that's a lot to take on, and to make people feel safe and
Yeah. It
heard.
yes, yes, yes. It is a lot to take on. And the reality of us as diversity and inclusion advocates is that our main job is to be chief listener.
I love that. Chief
Where
listener.
we yes, where we're actually listening to our colleagues, listening to our coworkers, listening to the individuals that we are charging with advancing the goals and mission accomplishments for our organizations. And when we listen, we sometimes have to hold things tight,
Mhm.
hold things inside, hold things confidentially, so that we can help to provide resources or point individuals in the direction for answers to questions, or for support when they say to us, I'm not okay,
Yeah.
and I need you to know I'm not okay. So being that listener as that diversity and inclusion advocate, whatever the name is that we embrace for that, means that we are compressed. We are sometimes isolated. We are sometimes rigid and confined. And we have to find ways to decompress. We
Yes.
have to find ways to exhale. And for some of us, that means taking a walk. For some of us, it means identifying a counselor who can listen to us
Right.
just as we are charged with listening to someone else.
I
For
like
someone
that.
else, it might be meditation. I'd be interested to really ask the question to the folks that are joining us in the podcast. If you would, if it's not too much to ask, please drop in the chat how you decompress. How
Okay.
do you intentionally and purposefully step away and take time for yourself so that you can be recentered?
I love that. All right, we're going throughout the podcast. People, when you get a moment, tell us how you decompress,
Yes.
and also find joy in the challenges that these particular issues may have for you, because we don't want to stay in a place that we feel there's no hope, you know, and that can come from all different perspectives. And I think, as you know, we've talked about this, there's the good, there's the bad, and there's the ugly. And when we talk about diversity and inclusion, and by the way, I just want to mention this: when you were at the University of Houston, heading up to the Heidi, it was called
Hmm.
Heidi, Hospitality Industry Diversity Institute. Um, there were you had an opportunity, I feel, or I saw, because I was on your advisory board,
Hmm.
that you had a support system there in place with that board. Is that the
Yes.
case? And how did you bring the people together? Let's talk about that. You did get a message in the chat room from Leslie Grossman, who said, "Oh, that's a good one, Leslie. She's on the treadmill." I love
Yeah.
that. And more companies allow treadmills in the office if you're in the office and you're not at home.
Yeah, they really do. I think that many of our companies now are really recognizing that not just our D&I advocates are need decompression, but our employees, because we are constantly being asked to do more with the same or reduced amounts of resources. And so that means that we're working harder, we're working faster, but are we really being productive? Are we really providing self care for ourselves? And so, coming back to that first one, we really have to strategically and intentionally provide time for us. And sometimes, folks, it might even mean just sitting in your quiet place, drinking a cup of coffee, oblivious to everything that's going on. Other times, it means a little bit more. It means that we have to find someone to listen to us, to help us get on the right track. I like what Robin says. Mindless TV shows. Yes, that is an absolute good one. For me, it's going to be the romantic comedies or the silly comedies. But whatever we do, let's keep it going. So to the next question of how do we facilitate engagement, or how did I facilitate engagement when I was the director of the Hospitality Industry Diversity Institute? The big thing that happened there is that I began to assemble an advisory council, and I didn't know everybody. I knew one or two people, and I could call them and say, hey, here is this opportunity for us to put in one place around this table individuals like us in the hospitality industry and hotels and amusement parks and airlines and food and beverage opportunities. We can put all individuals around the table that share this common goal of diversity. I know you. Who do you know? And so as I began to build this board, it wasn't just me, it was each one teach one, those 6 degrees of separation. And then strategically answering the question, what value does this individual bring? Because at that particular time, diversity and inclusion was not just brand new, but it was just beginning to get traction. And so individuals were doing things in silos, but when we all got around the table, that meant that we could share war stories. We could talk about things that work, we could share ideas. And the thing about that is just getting the folks around the table was innovative,
Yes.
because innovation by definition is the how we are getting these things done. And so innovation doesn't always mean, folks, the next Apple device. Sometimes it just means, how can I do what I'm doing more productively, more profitably, and more aligned with the mission that is assigned to us? So I put together this advisory board. Cary was at Wyndham at the time with the Women on Their Way program. And someone put me in touch with her. It was from AHNLA. And I said, hey, I met her. I said, that little lady has a lot of little swagger around her. I'm loving her thought pattern. And the Women on Their Way program was something that in itself was very innovative. Because
Yes.
remember, prior to you really launching that program, female business travelers were not extended the courtesies and the nuances that made our travels feel special. It was being safe for the female business traveler was putting her next to the elevator. Well, who wants to hear the elevator go up and down all night long? But with this program and with Carrie, things happened. And so she joined our circle of friends, and each one taught one. So I left Heidi in the University of Houston when I took the position at Tuskegee University. And one of my big aha moments personally was that I realized that I had nurtured this baby, I had grown this baby, but I had not effectively created a plan that was sustainable and viable. So while everything existed around relationships that I had, when I left, the relationships did not immediately transfer. And so I had to then understand, as the person that was leading that initiative, and my growth point there was that it's not really successful until it's sustainable. And when it's
Yes,
sustainable, then it becomes viable.
that's
So
great.
when we look at diversity and inclusion and we look at workplace issues, we ask the question, what practices, what strategies, what tactics can be duplicated, can be replicated so that they truly become practices that are sustainable for all, but unique and encompassing for the diverse populations that we serve in our workplace.
Great advice. And I think it ties into the reason we're offering the course of the C to CEO course, Diversity and Inclusion in the 2021 Workforce, to provide the tools, the knowledge, the coaching that's
Yes.
needed because one, we've been there.
Mhm.
Two, we've what do they say? We got the t-shirt, but we also learned some lessons,
Yes.
and so we want to share that knowledge. And I'm excited for people to go to cinderellaceo.com/curriculum and sign up for the course. We have a few spots left, and it's an amazing group of people coming together, and it begins June 10th.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
And Carrie, the thing about this course too is that not only are our participants going to be diversity and inclusion ambassadors, but they are individuals that are in the C suites of the organizations. And why
Yes,
this is really important
or
is
will
that
be. If they're not there, they will be. That's also part
exactly
of the training, is
that.
to get to that level.
Yes,
If you want to
yes.
be, if you want to be.
Yeah, yeah. Because what we know is that the change, we can talk about the groundswell, but the groundswell takes us only to a certain point. We have to truly have the buy-in from our executives if we truly are going to see a culture change in the organization.
Yes,
And so in our course, we talk then about some strategies that really can be implemented to bring the entire organization in, no matter where you are in it.
absolutely. And this is maybe a minor thing, but it's obviously something we need to talk about. Is organizations do understand or are beginning to understand um, the importance of diversity and inclusion, but they're at different levels and different readiness
Mhm,
to your
mhm,
point.
mhm,
As a
mhm,
matter of fact, there
mhm.
are different titles for this. Some people call it diversity and inclusion. Some people call it diversity, equity, and inclusion, or diversity, equality, and inclusion, people strategy. It's even in some cases under the corporate social responsibility. So, what would you say addressing the different stages and levels? How would you describe our approach that we're approaching our course with?
I think that the big thing I would say is that I'm not really a keeper of titles.
Very good.
So, your title is what you call yourself. Your title is what the organization perhaps recognizes you with. That title oftentimes brings with it some level of authority, power, and responsibility. In the course, though, it doesn't really matter what your title is as long as you truly understand your responsibility
Hmm.
in advancing diversity, inclusion, and equity in the organization.
So there's really no right or wrong there in particular, but it could be a branding of how you are, where you land on how your strategy
Mhm,
should evolve.
mhm, mhm. It
Okay.
yes, 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 yes. And the important critical thing to me is that each of us bears responsibility. We have to own the responsibility for advocating on behalf of this diversity and inclusion initiative. That is our responsibility. But we also come to the course and to our workplace with different levels of authority.
Hmm.
With the responsibility, we also have the power of influence.
Well
And we
said.
can we can influence when we understand. We can influence when we build the knowledge base and the content base to actually actualize what we're really talking about in this space.
I like that. And it kind of goes back to the self care again of people who are um, carrying this knowledge and kind of walking the talk, that you're going to be noticed and you're going to be looked up to, and you're going to be noticed. And maybe it's not going to all be a bowl of cherries, as I say.
It definitely is not going to be a bowl of cherries because we will have to move to some places of discomfort or what I call dis-ease in order to remove the disease. And I think the other thing that I would probably want to say in that same space is that there is something, this old saying, what
Hmm.
gets measured gets done.
Yes.
And so we will also uncover some of the metrics behind how do we measure the journey that we're on, and what does this inclusion thing look like as it really relates to this culture change. How do we know when we will get there, and how do we encourage individuals that are known resistors to maybe not
Embrace.
change their core, but at least be more open to understanding their coworkers so that we can build community.
I love it. And with Faye, with that, we've run out of time. And so we went over a little bit, but it was worth it. That you just have summarized so many, I think, important issues related to diversity and inclusion, and the people that are bringing it to their companies and organizations and communities. So thank you for being my guest today. And I look forward to being a co-leader in the Seat to CEO diversity and inclusion curriculum with you
Yes.
starting June 10th. If people want to know more, please go to cinderellaceo.com/curriculum, and you can read all about the course right there. Thank you, Dr. Faye Hall Jackson.
Thank you, Cary.
You're so welcome. And thanks everybody for joining us. By the way, we'll post the podcast on YouTube, Spreaker, and iTunes so that people can listen or watch it this week and forevermore. Take care. Thank you.